Well, we finally got the rest of the 2025 lineup for Harley-Davidson. I will say, however, the launch event was a bit uncoordinated because we all hit the button to sign up for notifications as to when the new bikes would be released. But I don't know about you, I never received any email at all. I did get a hint from the different YouTubers that it was going to be the 23rd and supposedly at 5 p.m. Central Time. So I did tune in a little bit before then. I was refreshing the website, and then the website updated said, hang on, more bikes coming tonight. So at least I knew I had the right day, but I wasn't really sure of the right time because I never got any notification even though I signed up. So I did look on YouTube and there was Riding the Ozarks with the live going on. So I tuned into that. And in the end, that truly was the only launch of the new models, was watching his channel and his live stream, which was really well done. Really kudos to him. So watching that and refreshing the website started to update and it did crash a few times. There was a lot of people taking a look. But I mean, really, Harley, where was the communication? Where was the big intro video that went through all the details? None of that happened. We just got a website update, and I guess you were lucky if you knew what day and time to tune in. Otherwise, it just left a lot of confusion of what was really released. So I want to use this video not to go through all the obvious, not to go through the colors and the models. I think everyone knows that by now. But there is some confusion I had about what was really released and what you're really getting with which model. So I'm going to use this video to go through those details. I do have a few hidden secrets in here. I'm going to show some parts and some changes from the previous year to this year. So I would stick around for that. So let's dig in. Let's start with the Cruiser line, also known as the Softail line. There were many updates into all the models here, and I think it was really the biggest win of this model year release. So first of all the bikes got a new motor, 117 cubic inch. But here's where the confusion lies. There are three versions of the motor. The Milwaukee 8 117 cubic inch classic motor. This features 120 foot-pounds at 2,500 RPM with 98 horsepower. Just short of 100. This shows up on the Street Bob and the Heritage Classic. The Milwaukee 8 117 cubic inch custom motor. This is 126 foot-pounds of torque at 3,000 RPM. 104 horsepower, so topping 100, shows up on the Fat Boy and the Breakout. I think it's interesting that it shows up on the Fat Boy. Of all the models, you think that might have the Classic, but it's got the better performing motor. Lastly, we have the high output version showing up on the Lowrider S and the Lowrider ST. This has got 128 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 RPM, so revving out a bit more with 114 horsepower. So it's interesting that we have these three different motors in the Softail line, and it's not just the same motor all the way across. That's a bit unique for Harley. The motors have different finishes and they have different cams. I think really the rest of the specs of the motors are the same, so it's the cam change and some finish changes. But you have choices based on the model of Softail you're looking at. Besides the motor changes, we have some trim options. You can get many of these models in chrome or black trim or laced wheels or mag wheels. So some different options that we haven't had before, only on some of the models. All the lights are now LED. I think we've been asking that for a while, and I think the entire model lineup now has no incandescent bulbs. The Softails all got new hand controls, and they don't have all the buttons of the touring models, but they do have ride modes. So we finally got modes on these bikes. We have Sport, Rain, and Tour. But I think it's important to note there is no custom option. So you can't customize your ride mode as you can with the touring bikes. We got cruise control on all the models as well. So now we can finally set the cruise and just relax on any Softail model headed to Sturgis. We also got a gauge update. So on the previous year models, they updated with this tiny little LCD. I would say it looked pretty good and it blended in with the handlebars, so it kind of disappeared. So now we've gone back to a round analog gauge, which is nice. I like analog stuff, and it has a little bit of digital in it. But it does not look great on some of these new models. It really sticks out, where the previous design just disappeared. But I think they did this to incorporate the ride mode information and a little different information on the screen, such as the tire pressure management system. All of the bikes now have that and a few rider safety enhancements. We got an adjustable brake lever, which is nice. And this one I would take note is infinitely adjustable, unlike on the touring models where it's notched for 5 different settings. The Softails is a wheel, so you can adjust infinitely. We got tuned suspension. So most of the models claim that they have tuned suspension. So apparently there were some minor suspension changes, but I'm not really sure. The details are not great. How much suspension travel we really got, it's just not very clear. And sometimes I think there was no change, but they're still kind of touting that there was a change. Again, we got all the rider safety enhancements are now available on all the Softails as standard. Got a 2-into-1 exhaust on some of the models, which fixed the biggest complaint about the Lowrider ST, and that's the bags. The bags are now the same on both sides, and I think it looks great. I think this bike is truly the winner this year, and I think many are going to look to it versus a touring model. The two are getting pretty close in price, but that Lowrider ST is smaller, lighter, and clearly faster. And I don't know, but if you get the split lanes or lane filter as we do now in Colorado, that smaller bike is a bit appealing, especially for commuting to work with 2 full-size bags. The Street Glide Ultra. We finally have an Ultra back in the line, and it's been updated off the Street Glide platform from last year. There's no Road Glide version of it, but I think you can take a Road Glide and upgrade it with all the parts, and it would be a Road Glide Ultra. So it's a beautiful bike, especially in the Whiskey Fire with the Raven Black. It's pretty cool. It comes with lowers, and the lowers have a built-in vent, built-in storage, and they're an option for other new era touring models. I think they really look great. They're almost Indian Pursuit, a little bit thinner than the Pursuit. I think the storage compartment's really large and great because we don't have that radiator there for the cooling. That's now built in to the bike and not taking up space in the lowers. Is the suspension the same? Well, Harley claims that it's got 3 inches of travel. We also know the seat's a lot bigger. And there was a comment from some YouTubers that have ridden it that it sits higher. I suspect that's the seat, because they claim the suspension is 3 inches of travel. But that was the same claim with the Street Glide when it was updated. So I'm not sure that's the case. However, the part number is different between the rear suspension of the Street Glide and the rear suspension of the Street Glide Ultra. So it is a different shock, but I think it's the same. So what happened to the new tour pack? We have that drawing from Dennis Chung, who released it on motorcycle.com, of a patent for a new style tour pack. Well, we don't see it. We have the King tour pack on the Street Glide Ultra, and that new tour pack hasn't shown up. I do like the design in the new tour pack, and it has the lights built in. Is that yet to come? All right, the Road Glide and the Street Glide are carryover models, and then the CVOs have returned. So they're really carryover models as well, but we got the new paint schemes. We have the chrome option, and then we have the black option. The price went up, but we do have new CVOs. But are they paint only? Well, I dug into the part numbers to take a look. So this is a list of all the part numbers for the new Road Glide and Street Glide and new CVOs, and the year the part was updated, or the year the part was released. So I went through the list here, and we can see that there are a lot of 2025 part updates. A lot of things like labels, of course, and the fuel tank. Now, why would the fuel tank be updated? It's actually nothing mechanical with the fuel tank. It's just the paint and the emblems that go on these tanks. So the different models have different paint colors and different emblems. So that's an updated part. So a lot of these are really just graphics and paint and nothing else. But the list is pretty long. So I did go through and I did research on a lot of these, and I did find this. So there's a cooling system engine center cool update and a cylinder head and valves update. And if you dig into that, there's actually a service bulletin on it. So they've changed the center cooling hose between the two heads, and it has a larger outer diameter. Now the inner diameter, I believe, is the same. So there's no additional flow here, no additional room for coolant to move around. It's just a hose change, but it requires a different Oetiker clamp. So if the technician installs the new hose, but the old Oetiker clamp, you're gonna get a leak. So if we start seeing leaks from this hose, it's probably a mismatch of this new part. Looking through the rest of the list, I didn't find anything that was really unique. Now we do get a new ECM part number and a BCM part number. That seems to happen every year. As far as I can tell, they're still the same computers, but who knows for sure, right? What's different on the inside of those. And if we keep going down, there's the infotainment control unit. Now when the 2024s were released, we moved to revision A of the infotainment control unit. And we know that the software version was different on the 24s from the 23.5s. And then later we got that big software update that was a bit challenging to install that brought both the 23.5s and the 24s to the same version of the Skyline OS. So now we have a 2025 version of it, so Rev B of the system. But as far as I know, the infotainment software is exactly the same, and there's been no changes thus far. So again, there is no software update. I was really expecting we'd see a Skyline OS update when the 25s came out, but nothing thus far. So stay tuned. You know I'll be watching for it. When it comes out, I'll volunteer to install it first, and we'll see if it bricks my bike. So would I upgrade? Is there any reason to upgrade your bike? If you're a 23.5 CVO owner or a 24 Street Glide, Road Glide, or CVO owner, is there any reason to upgrade? I cannot find any significant changes, or frankly any changes at all, between the 24s and the 25s. And if you're a 23.5 owner, there was just a couple minor changes, like the charging tender is now removed from the harness on the 24, so you can turn your bike on and still have the battery charge. But we've got workarounds for that, and I've got videos on all that stuff for the 23.5s. So I really see no reason. So unless you're super excited about one of the new paint schemes and are willing to pay full retail, or maybe above retail, I don't know, I think you should keep your current bike and enjoy it. The Sport line. These were missing from the carryover release, and we anticipated there'd be big changes with the Sport line. Well, I think we're a bit disappointed. We got a 60% of suspension travel increase on the Sportster S. I think that was a big win. That bike was noted to be very hard and firm, and you felt every bump, and you came off the seat with every pothole. So they've increased the suspension travel by 3 inches on the Sportster S. There's no mention of any changes for the Nightster or the Nightster S. So it has the same seat height, so they just increased the travel without impacting the height. And it's a fully adjustable suspension front and rear on the Sportster S, which it was before. So really no big deal here. We got new paint, some cool paint options, but I don't see any big changes with the Sportster S, so I'm not sure why they weren't just carryover models. Why did they not just reveal the Nightsters? I don't know. I'm not finding any changes with these models. All right, the Pan Americas. As we predicted, we got the Pan America ST. So it's the same price as the Pan America S. It's just stripped of a lot of the off-road stuff. It's also much more road focused. So it has Michelin Scorcher tires on it. And again, it's meant for on-road use instead of off-road use, but frankly, it still looks like the off-road bike. Will it sell? Well, I really don't know. The Pan America has done okay as an off-road bike, but I think it started off great and sales have dwindled off. It's a very large bike. I think if you're a traditional Harley guy or a Harley fan, you would like to maybe try off-road, but on a smaller bike. None of us Harley guys are good on the dirt, unless you have some experience as a kid on a dirt bike, or you own an adventure bike that is not Harley. So for me, I'm always looking for a good entry-level option, and if a Harley released one, of course I'd be kind of loyal to the Harley brand, so I'd probably buy it. But this is the full-size bike. It's only meant for on-road. I don't know what the interest will be in it. Many Pan America fans are touting how comfortable the bike is and how well that motor performs. So maybe there's a market for it, but I'm not really sure. So each year I get excited about the new parts and accessories. You never know, they may have released something that you now have to have for your bike. So I love going through these and scrolling through and seeing what's new. First is the Stage 3 by Rockford Fosgate. So we've gone from Stage 1, Stage 2, and now Stage 3. The CVOs have come with Stage 2, and now we have a Stage 3 option. So if you're a 23.5 or a 24 CVO owner, you may have opted to get the Stage 3 lid speakers, which were 6x9s that fit in the 5x7 hole. So you can still find that speaker. But now they've updated it with red inserts. So all the speakers have a little red highlight in them. Of course, they have all the kits for the existing bikes. And if you've got a non-CVO bike, you're going to have that puny amplifier, so you're going to have to upgrade to the 500 watt and then add the speakers, either the fronts, the rears, or both. Another product featured this year is the Olin suspension. So if you have the non-upside down suspension on your Street Glide or Road Glide, you can now invest in the Harley branded Olins. So you can get them in gold, or you could get them in black. You need a new triple tree, which they also offer, so you can get the whole front end done, all from Harley Davidson now. I also found this on the list, a Screamin' Eagle transmission for the new era touring bikes. So apparently it comes from the King of the Baggers racing series, and it can handle the higher torque and horsepower of these bigger motors. If you're going to invest in the lowers, you're going to need several parts. But one accessory for the lowers is the LED fog lamps. So they mount to the front of the lower, and I think they look really great. They don't act as turn signals, just on or off fog lights. You can now get the lighted hand controls for your Street Glide or Road Glide, which I think is a nice win, in black or chrome. We now have a coil cover. If you've been following me for a while, I did a video on using the older model coil cover, which actually does fit the new touring bikes. But they've now come up with one specifically for these new motorcycles. It doesn't cover the coil completely, but it does add a nice accent to where the horn used to be and is now a coil cover. The Cool Flow fan. So this is the updated version of the Cool Flow fan, and it's meant for the new era touring models. Many of you went through the bike menu on your new bike and found a fan icon, so you turned it on. I think you're thinking that it controlled the fan for the radiator. This is actually not true. The radiator fan runs no matter what setting you have that set to. That setting was for this accessory. And if you turned it on and have that little fan icon on your infotainment system, but don't have this installed, you're likely going to throw a check engine light. So I would turn that off unless you have this installed. The same goes for the fog lamps. If you have that turned on but don't have them installed, turn that off. Lastly, I discovered this one, an electric pressure washer branded by Harley Davidson. Why on earth would you invest in a true Harley Davidson pressure washer? But I dug into the specs. As it turns out, this pressure washer is limited in its PSI to 800. So typical pressure washers are up to 1200 PSI or even higher. And that is really too strong for the sensitive parts on a motorcycle. So this one limits that PSI. It also gives us 1.5 gallons per minute. I think as a detailer, you're really looking for 2, but often you can change the nozzles up for a larger orifice and get that gallon flow to bump up a little bit. Maybe this pressure washer has some value. Overall, for the 2025 Harley Davidson release, I say we have these highlights. First of all, everything is LED. The incandescent bulb finally dies in the 2025 model year. The tank badges. I think Harley's done a great job with the badges this year. This is really a part of Harley tradition to have some sort of logo or badge on the tank, and I think they've honored this tradition well this year. Many of the badges have colors in them now, and they're very three-dimensional, and I think they look great. So I think Harley's getting on board with the paint colors that Harley riders are looking for. Whether you're mild or wild, you have several choices now. In chrome finishes or black trim, laced wheels or mag wheels. I think Harley's done a good job with these offerings this year. The Softail improvements. I think this is a big win. I think they've updated the cruiser line very well. And for me, that Lowrider ST is quite the appealing bike. All right, the price hikes across the board. I'm not here to argue whether Harleys are worth it or not. That's really a personal decision. But they did up the prices across the line. I think this is unfortunate. Last year we lowered the price on the Street Glide and Road Glide, which is quite the win for them from a marketing standpoint. And then this year they've increased it. I'm not so sure Harley is in a stance with their customer to do this. I think this is going to irritate many customers. But I will say if you are looking for a Harley, a new one, you may look at one of the 2024s because now is a good time to buy one. Lastly, I want to say there's no love for the trikes. There were no updates for the trikes at all. They don't have the new fairing, the new infotainment, new technology, none of that. I think that's quite a disappointment, and they're leaving their trike riders out. We know Indian doesn't offer a trike at all, so there's a lot of interest in trikes, and they look to Harley, and the bikes are just not updated. I think this was a miss. So if you're new to my channel, I encourage you to subscribe. I've got a lot of videos about these new touring bikes and some very good useful information. If you're buying one for the first time, check out my video library. I've got quite a few things that'll help you out. One of the key items is trying to use CarPlay without a headset. So this MAEDHawk adapter is actually a product I partnered with this company on. So if you've not seen it, check out my Headset Killer version 2.0 video and you can learn all about it. Link in the description if you'd like to order one. It's only $22, so I would check it out. I hope you found this information useful, and if you did, you'll go share it with someone else. But until next time, in the Friction Zone.